In the world of 1970s drag racing, the rules were simple: bigger was better. The NHRA Pro Stock division was a kingdom ruled by massive, hemi-power mopars and other traditional muscle machines. Victory belonged to the car that could shoehorn the largest engine into the largest body. But in 1972, one engineer decided that brain would finally beat brute force. And he did it with a car so unlikely and controversial, it managed to outrage the entire sport. Bill "Grumpy" Jenkins' Chevrolet Vega. The brute force era and a new vision. Before Jenkins, competitors in Pro Stock were locked in a constant chase for raw engine power. Teams focused on increasing cubic inches, believing the sheer displacement would always overwhelm the competition. Cars like the Plymouth Cuda, driven by legends like Sox and Martin, defined the era. Enter Bill "Grumpy" Jenkins. Jenkins was an engineer and a perfectionist from Pennsylvania, a man who earned his famous nickname not for being cheerful, but for his unyielding demand for excellence. He saw beyond the traditional formula. Jenkins understood that the future of racing wasn't about simply having the biggest engine. It was about efficiency. While his rivals obsessed over horsepower alone, Jenkins studied the often ignored science of power-to-weight ratios, aerodynamics, and the car's overall balance, or chassis dynamics. He realized the old way was fading, and a new, smarter approach was needed to win. The unlikely weapon, Grumpy's Toy 9. Jenkins' choice of a platform was perhaps the most shocking part of his plan. He picked the 1972 Chevrolet Vega. By all accounts, the Vega was a failure, a cheap, weak, and unreliable economy car. But Jenkins saw potential where everyone else saw junk. The Vega was small and, most importantly, lightweight with a very useful shape for cutting through the air. The crucial element was a recent change in NHRA rules. These new regulations allowed cars running small block engines to compete at significantly lighter weights than those using the huge big block engines. In his workshop, Jenkins began building what would become his masterpiece, Grumpy's Toy 9. The engine was a Chevy small block, eventually a 331 cubic inch unit that would produce a massive 585 horsepower, an astonishing figure for its size at the time. However, the real revolution was the car's structure. Jenkins stripped the Vega down and rebuilt it with what was essentially a tube-frame race car chassis hidden under the Vega body panels. This was not a modified street car. It was a purebred racer wearing a disguise. The storming of the Nationals and instant success. When Jenkins rolled his Vega into the 1972 Winter Nationals, it was an immediate lightning rod for controversy. Officials and competitors alike swarmed the car. It looked too aggressive, too low, and too different. The headers were deemed illegal, and the new chassis was seen as bending the rules of the stock part of Pro Stock racing. Jenkins was initially kicked out of the inspection area, but Jenkins was determined. He worked with his crew through the night to modify the parts and bring the car into compliance. When he returned the next day, he was allowed to race. The car qualified in 17th place, and nobody expected much from the odd little Vega. But on race day, everything clicked. The small, light car came alive, flying down the strip in the mid-9.6-second range. Round after round, it took down bigger, supposedly more powerful opponents. In the final, Jenkins crushed his competitor, winning the event in the car's very first outing. The shock was instant. A lightweight, efficient design had beaten the kings of brute force. A legacy rewritten for all of motorsport. The Vega's initial victory was just the beginning. Jenkins went on to win 6 of the 7 national events in 1972, earning a record amount of money and even landing a feature in Time magazine. But the real impact was far-reaching and permanent. What Jenkins did with the Vega, the concept of wrapping a highly specialized tube-frame race chassis inside a production car body, didn't just change Pro Stock. It changed all of motorsport. Suddenly, racing had shifted from a contest of engine displacement to a competition of engineering, aerodynamics, and efficiency. Today, every modern Pro Stock car and every NASCAR Cup Series car traces its fundamental design back to the principles established by Jenkins' controversial Vega. The car that initially angered the NHRA and was considered too radical, ultimately became the universal blueprint for competitive racing machines across the world. Jenkins, who passed away in 2012, proved that sometimes the best way to win is not to follow the rules of the past, but to cleverly rewrite the rules for the future.